Ahead on Black News Tonight, Chicago schools are closed once again as disputes over the safety of returning back to in-person learning continue. We'll have the latest. Plus, today marking 1 year since the deadly insurrection in Washington, D.C., that day leaving a lasting image in the minds across the country, especially for those who helped capture it. I'll talk with photographer Mel Cole about his book, American Protest, Photographs 2020-21. Then, a major win for environmental justice in Arlington, Texas, as officials there rejected plans to expand fracking next to a preschool attended mostly by black and brown children. We'll talk to community members who led the fight against drilling. And hosts of Fresh and Fit podcast are under fire after bashing black women on their show. Feminista Jones, author, activist, and public speaker, as well as writer and cultural critic Jamila Lemieux. They're joining me to talk about the podcast and the anti-black racist misogyny that black women experience every day. Black News Tonight starts now. Good evening and thank you for joining me on Black News Tonight. I'm Marc Lamont Hill. In Chicago, classes have been canceled for the third day in a row after the Chicago Teachers Union and the school district have not reached an agreement over COVID-19 safety protocols. Following the surge in COVID cases, the Teachers Union has been fighting city school officials to return back to remote learning. However, the school district believes that remote learning is not effective. As this dispute continues, Chicago Public Schools report a record high in COVID cases among staff and students. Yesterday, sociologist and writer Dr. Eve L. Ewing stopped by Black News Tonight to talk about the situation. Let's take a listen.
Just as a worker, as a person, as a Chicagoan, I'm grateful to see the union do what I think a lot of folks need to be doing in many professions, which is standing up and saying, we are putting people first, we are putting health first, we are putting science first. We see people in all kinds of professions, whether it's nurses, factory workers, grocery store folks, being put in these really unsafe scenarios because everybody's just tired of COVID. And just because we're tired of it and it's not fun and it's not economically beneficial doesn't mean that we make unsafe choices.
Turning now to Philadelphia, where a row home fire killed 12 people on Wednesday, 8 of them children. Though officials have not released the names and ages of those killed in the disaster, family members on Facebook have identified 2 victims as sisters, Virginia Thomas and Rosalie McDonald. It's still unknown which of their children were in the home at the time. The property belonged to the Philadelphia Housing Authority, who stated that the smoke alarms were inspected in May of 2021, but fire officials say none of the 4 alarms they found on the scene appeared to be working. Investigators are looking into the possibility that the fire started when a 5-year-old set a Christmas tree on fire while playing with a lighter. Nothing so far has been confirmed. Today marks 1 year since the insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. The deadly riot signifying a dangerous moment not only in politics, but a threat to our very democracy. Rioters forced their way into the Capitol in an effort to keep Congress from confirming President Joe Biden's election victory. Americans across the country watched in horror as mostly supporters of President Trump clashed with police and security officials, trashing President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on the way. They both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden also held speeches today speaking about the attack and how the attack impacted U.S. democracy.
We cannot let our future be decided by those bent on silencing our voices, overturning our votes, and peddling lies and misinformation. By some radical faction that may be newly resurgent, but whose roots run old and deep. We cannot sit on the sidelines. We must unite in defense of our democracy.
The images we saw on January 6th, 2021, coming not only from people posting on social media, but also professionals not realizing exactly what was about to unfold. Photographer Mel Cole thought he was going to capture just an ordinary Trump rally. But what he witnessed and captured with his lens turned into a moment in history that shocked the world. He detailed this experience in his new book. It's called American Protests, Photographs 2020-2021. He joins me now, Mel D. Cole, star photographer. Welcome to Black News Tonight, my brother. Paint the scene for us, though. When you noticed that, it was my pleasure, brother. When you saw at some point this wasn't going to be an ordinary Trump rally. What went through your mind when you realized things took a turn?
Well, yeah, thank you for having me, first of all. And when I noticed that things were taking a turn is when I was walking towards the Capitol building after listening to Trump speak. He told everybody to go there. So I started to walk down there and, seeing Confederate flags. And it just opened up like a movie scene. You see this gentleman that's on the screen right now. And once I arrived at the point where I'm like, holy bleep, this is going to be one of the most insane days of my life.
Wow. Now, you weren't just a photographer, you were also a black man. In fact, you're a black man first, and you're in the middle of a rally of people trying to tear down the Capitol. First and always, right? So how'd you feel as a black man in that crowd? Because that ain't your tribe.
Well, I mean, it was scary. It was very, very scary. It was terrifying, to say the least. It still sticks with me to this day, knowing that I was around people that, could have walked up right behind me and bashed me upside the head just for the color of my skin. And not only for that, but for being a photographer. I saw a fellow journalist get beat up just because they worked for a certain news organization, which is horrible, so when I was there, I always kept my head on a swivel, making sure that my left, my right, in front of me and the back of me was, protected, so to speak. But there was times, there's so much commotion where you just totally forget where you are and you're focusing on your job. And, I always tell people that I wasn't as scared as of the people that were there as much. I was much more afraid of the police officers. When it was time for them to come with the retaliation, I knew that they would single black people out first, because I've seen it firsthand throughout summer 2020 with the protesting going on here in New York, and also, all over the world. It happens. They come for us first.
You've also captured photos at other times, for example, the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020. Were there any comparisons between those events?
The comparisons for me, is just people fighting for what they believe in. You have two sides of the coin, left and the right. And, the Black Lives Matter movement is, people fighting for democracy. And for the Trumpers, they think that they are fighting for their democracy as well. So the lines, they parallel, they go together. Waking up one morning or afternoon, whatever it is, and, George Floyd died, or was brutally murdered rather, that led me into wanting to shoot, the other side of the coin. So yeah, they both have similarities for sure.
Now, the photos that you caught and featured in the book, what will those photos reveal to the reader about that day? What will we get from that photo book that we don't get from hearing the stories or even watching the news?
Well, you'll get something that is tangible, first of all, which I love. And second of all, you'll really, holding something in your hand and really studying and looking at exactly, what I try to convey and display to you is something, it's powerful. That's why the one word that comes to mind when I talk about, my book, it covers, a time in history that I hope to never document again. I hope that my son will never have to go through this again. And, it's history, it's historic, from the cover to the middle where I'm showing, there's a couple of pages about the insurrection and on. There's beautiful moments, there's absolutely stunning images, but there's also things that are going to be conversational pieces that's going to make you go, man, wow, he was there and he captured this. And, sometimes I look at my book and I scratch my head. I can't believe that I was there. And thinking about it, it's only less than 2 years ago. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. Wow, man. Well, we're grateful for the work you've done, grateful for the courageous actions that it took to take those photos and to do the work. And we're grateful that this book is out, man. So I can't wait for people to read it. Everybody, make sure you pick up a copy of the book. It's called American Protest, Photographs 2020-2021. Mel, my brother, good to see you. Thank you. Make sure you come back. Everybody, make sure you join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Head over to our BNC Instagram and Twitter pages. Let us know how you feel. Also, visit the website, bnc.tv, and subscribe to our YouTube page to check out clips from the show. Coming up next, plans to expand gas drilling next to a preschool attended by mostly black and brown children. Well, they've been stopped in Arlington, Texas. We'll talk with two members from the community who have been on the front lines of that environmental justice victory. Stay right here.